You said Abiy Ahmed, and I'm quoting you, perfected genocide into an art form. Do you stand by those genocide accusations, or have you walked them back now that you work for it?
Whatever the superlatives there, I know all kinds of crimes were committed in Tigray.
Did Abiy Ahmed carry out a genocide?
I will tell you this, as a lawyer, I cannot say who did this and that, but the crime was committed in Tigray.
You're a lawyer?
Yeah.
Were you not a lawyer in 2021 when you said Abiy Ahmed has carried out a genocidal campaign?
Yeah, I was a lawyer.
Were you not a lawyer when you said Abiy committed genocide on the people of Tigray?
I was a lawyer, and I was in the heat of a conflict that was claiming the lives of hundreds of thousands of people.
So was it a genocide or not?
I believe genocide has been committed in Tigray.
By Abiy Ahmed?
Well, I have to be responsible for my words now.
So you weren't responsible
and
before?
I am ready to stand by my position that genocide has been committed.
I'm confused. Just to clarify for the audience watching, you still believe it was a genocide, but you're not willing to say he did the genocide?
Yes.
It was a genocide that just happened by itself?
No, there were so many actors involved.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is...
Was he one of them?
Well, the war on Tigray was led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed himself.
So he led the genocide?
I mean, we don't have to be that specific.
We do.
He led the war.
That's why we invited you here, to find out your views.
He led the war.
He led the war.
So I will give him the opportunity to
genocide.
defend himself in public, in court.
Okay.
What I'm saying is all kinds of crimes.
You mentioned...
Crimes, ethnic cleansing, genocide were committed.
So you're right, there were well-documented war crimes committed by the federal government, by Eritrean troops, by Amhara militias. But human rights organizations in the United Nations also documented massacres of hundreds of people, including civilians, by Tigrayan forces, by your side. At the time, you labeled those claims, quote, a figment of someone's imagination. You called it a staged drama. Can you now admit that you were lying at the time to cover up war crimes
I wasn't lying.
by your forces?
I was making a statement defending our decisions that there was no systematic attack against civilians by the Tigrayan forces, but to the extent that there were incidents, we were ready to hold ourselves accountable to any international tribunal. So when I say...
You said at the time, these are just a figment of someone's imagination. There was no such thing as our forces going in every house and targeting civilians. They fought and our forces fought back. That sounds like a denial of war crimes.
You know, in the benefit of hindsight, I can see cases here and there where civilians were targeted.
Here and there?
Yes.
One man said he counted 55 corpses as he escaped from his town in northern Ethiopia. He stepped over bodies scattered in the streets. Another asserted he was rounded up with 20 men who were shot in front of him. Yet others claimed Tigrayan forces went door to door, killing men and teenage boys. That happened on your watch.
Well, to say that it happened under my watch, under circumstances, would be a bit of a stretch. But when I say that no such decision was made against civilians, I still stand by it because there was no decision to target civilians. But as long as there were off-grid officers here and there who have targeted civilians, I'd be more than glad to assume my fair share of responsibility.
To be fair, you recently exposed an internal TPLF investigation that accuses 231 of your former leaders and affiliates of crimes, including human trafficking, abductions, gold and weapon smuggling. But you waited to reveal it.
Honestly...
How do we know you weren't involved in these crimes?
Honestly, I wasn't involved in the crimes because...
Well, you exposed them.
Because I wasn't. But I knew...
That's not really a good defense. I wasn't involved in the crimes because I wasn't.
After having spent months as president of the interim administration, it came to my knowledge that these kinds of activities were quite...
But you didn't reveal it. You waited until this year.
Because I didn't reveal it because we believed in the TPLF that maintaining a modicum of unity was far more important than addressing our internal problems. And that...
I mean, human trafficking is not an internal problem. It's a major crime.
When I first decided to bring those not just accusations, but also evidence to light, well, my responsibility was to make sure the people who were in the business of adjudicating these cases were informed. And it's not like I can go door to door and prosecute myself.
But you exposed 231 people.
But I did the exposing way ahead of my being ousted as interim president.
But you admitted earlier this year that you lied up until now. I tolerated this.
No, I tolerated.
You lied. You said you lied.
No, I didn't lie. I tolerated.
You said earlier this year, it is enough that I lied up to now and I tolerated up to now. Those are your words.
Well,
are you lying about having lied?
Whoever translated those things to you must have overstated their case.
What would you say to someone in this audience who says, you exposed 231 people in your party for committing crimes. Conveniently, none of the 231 were you.
Unfortunately for whoever is making those claims, I wasn't one of them. It's as simple as that.
Okay. The Pretoria Agreement, the peace deal that you negotiated, signed in 2022, that pledged justice for millions of people who suffered during the war in Tigray. It's been 3 years, and none of the key promises have been fulfilled. None of the major players have been held accountable for war crimes. In fact, many of them are still in positions of power. Last month, you met with Amhara official Demeke Zudu, who Human Rights Watch has said continued the ethnic cleansing in Western Tigray even after the ceasefire, including, quote, arbitrary detention, torture, forced deportations. How can Tigrayans possibly believe that you are working in their best interest when you're meeting one of the men who is responsible for them having lost their land?
Is that unheard of elsewhere? If you are interested in resolving this crisis, you have to deal with people who are in charge now. I believe the federal government needs to dismantle any Amhara administration in occupied areas in Western Tigray and other parts of Tigray that are still occupied by the Amhara. And if I have to make sure that the people have their opportunity to come back home, you have to work with the federal government and work with people.
This is the problem, Getachew. You seem to change your tune. You have to change your tune.
No. I have to swallow my pride.
Not just swallow your pride. You're changing your very view of the world. This is what you said a year ago.
No. I'm not.
This is what you said.
Anyone.
This is what you said a year ago. It would be very foolhardy for us to expect internally displaced persons to enter when the very people who caused their displacement in the first place are still roaming the very streets we saw the carnage. You're sitting down with those people.
This is one of the agreements we have with the federal government when I was head of the interim administration, is for that Amhara administration to be dismantled and for security to be taken care of by the federal government, along with traditional militia and police institutions that had been there before the war. And I haven't changed my position.
Okay.
Demeke Zudu should not be in the business of administering that area, but if I have to create the ground for the return of IDPs with the federal government and have to continue to work with people like him.
Many Tigrayans, you know this, see you as a traitor. Thousands of people in Tigray went to the battlefield and they died. They were killed in war based on your call to arms. You urged young Tigrayans to, quote, rise and deploy to battle in tens of thousands. What do you say to the people of Tigray today who were victims of the war and who now think you betrayed them by joining the architect of their suffering, Abiy Ahmed?
There are two things here. That Tigrayans had to come out en masse to defend themselves was the right thing to do. That I had to call on them to rise up to defend themselves was the right thing to do. But that, as member of the leadership, we have failed them miserably. That I will carry to my grave is I am part of the blame. And the reason why I am trying to do what I am doing right now is to make sure that not only I atone for the kinds of mistakes we have done, but also I have to do everything in my power to make sure that that sort of miscalculation will never happen again. And the thousands of youngsters who paid their lives, that could have been avoided if we were insightful enough as the leaders. Doesn't happen again.
All right, let's go to our panel of experts here. I'm joined by Sedale Lema, editor of the Addis Standard newspaper. Were you surprised, Sedale, to see Getachew join Abiy Ahmed's administration? What does that mean for the victims of the war? He says he feels like he's atoning for things.
I think it's one of the greatest tragedies, Getachew. This is not just a moral collapse. This risks erasing morality altogether. You agree that a genocide took place. And it's not just a figment of imagination. You mentioned about, I would call it pragmatism or working from within to solve this problem. And I think your supporters also say the same thing. What have you done so far? Have the people of Tigray been compensated, redress, justice? Have the federal government tried to incorporate, after you even came to it, incorporate Tigray into the federation? The answer is no.
Okay.
Is there any justice to the victims? The answer is no.
Bisrat Lamessa is an independent researcher, runs the think tank Nexus Forum for Research and Dialogue. Do you agree with Sedale's point that he may have joined the government, he may be trying to do good, but where are the results? What did you make when you heard the big news that he had come and joined Abiy Ahmed?
I don't I agree with Adala, unfortunately. Well, one thing, it hasn't been designated as a genocide. This is a very sensitive concept that we shouldn't casually throw around. But when it comes to Getachew, I believe this is a very pragmatic move that has positive dividends at multiple levels. This is not a simple alliance between two individuals. People are rejecting TPLF's 50-year autocratic monopoly over the people's political, civil, and economic lives. They want a new political dispensation which is democratic, inclusive, open, and diverse. And I believe such a move is an ideal opportunity to create an alternative space that will enable Tigray to renew itself from within.
So Bisrat makes the case for why you should be in there. Deal with Sadale's point that what have you actually achieved being in government? What justice have you got?
I'll have to first respond to what Sadal. I mean, you know, I'm not here to pontificate about moral. I'm one of those leaders who should be blamed for anything and everything that has gone wrong. But I also know that I'm one of the leaders who realized that going ahead with the kind of destructive approach we've been following is not going to be in the best interest of the people of Tigray.
What have you achieved by making this big step?
Oh, you mean since joining? I had long since joined Abiy Ahmed. I was the interim president appointed by Abiy Ahmed. And why is it that all of a sudden now I was ousted from Tigray, as it were, and then I come to Addis and I have to deal with Tigray issues. I still have to protect the best interest of the people of Tigray in any way I can. And then I have the opportunity to work with the Prime Minister, not as a policymaker, but as an advisor who would give his 5 cents.
Let's bring in Shetil Tronville, is a professor of peace and conflict studies at Oslo New University College. He specializes in Ethiopian and Eritrean affairs. Getachew says he wants accountability and justice for Tigray and the victims of the civil war. Is the federal government that he's part of, that he's a minister in, is it working towards that aim? Is it doing enough?
Well, we don't have any evidence for that as of now. They have put in place a so-called transitional justice mechanism to address the mass atrocities taking place in Tigray during the war. But that framework of so-called transitional justice is more aimed at not disclosing and not placing accountability on individuals, but diverting attention to other aspects of Ethiopia's long troubled history of human rights abuse. So as of today, we have no evidence whatsoever that the government is providing accountability for the mass atrocities.
No evidence whatsoever. That's pretty damning.
I agree with Shetil. Nothing of the sort has happened. Well, the Defense Ministry has taken measures against some of grade low-level officials. And as long as I am able to convince or try to impress on the powers that be in Addis Ababa that none of the adventures 5 years ago are going to pay dividends, and then I will use that opportunity.
In 2019, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed won the Nobel Peace Prize for ending decades of hostilities with neighboring Eritrea. Abiy then partnered with Eritrea to fight against Tigray in the civil war. Today, however, there are rumblings of a possible new conflict between these two countries. There are reports of Ethiopian tanks and artilleries moving towards the border. Both governments are accusing each other of trying to provoke a conflict. Is Ethiopia on the precipice of another war with Eritrea?
I wouldn't put it that way. I mean, the whole rhetoric about Ethiopia's wanting to have access to the Red Sea is often conflated with the idea of ownership of real estate, coal, asset, or whatever. As far as I'm concerned, there is no credible argument whatsoever to try and go against the sovereignty of Eritrea.
Are you saying that the claims of the Ethiopian government, led by Abiy, saying we want access to that Red Sea port that's in Eritrea, you're saying that won't lead to war?
No. What I'm saying is I don't expect that to lead to war, at least not in the foreseeable future, as far as I'm concerned.
Prime Minister Abiy, on the one hand, has said he wants peace. He says he wants to avoid conflict. On the other, he's vowed to, quote, correct this historic error of the seaport and said, quote, I am 1,000,000% sure Ethiopia will not remain landlocked. The Ethiopian military said recently that it will not hesitate to make any sacrifice to secure access to the sea. How are those not threats?
So I have reason to believe that President Isaias and Prime Minister Abiy will find it in their hearts to find a way to resolve, to defuse the crisis. Believe me. That's what I believe
When
in.
you
Because
say believe me, this show is not about belief. It's about facts. It's about evidence.
I will tell
Do you have any evidence?
I'll tell you about the facts.
Do you have any evidence that you're ruling? You're saying there's no conflict. Everyone who's worried about conflict
I'll give you
right
the facts.
now.
I'll give you the facts. Okay. You know, I recently traveled to Afar region, all the way to Bure.
Yeah.
And I saw concrete asphalt being built by the Ethiopian government.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Eritrean government also is building their side of the asphalt. So it must have been a recent fallout between the two sides. So if they have made that investment sincerely, and then I cannot rule out the two parties coming together and
people worry about the
issue.
rhetoric. Many would say this is not about a port. This is about expansionism by the Ethiopian government. Some have said that Abiy is, quote, obsessed with Ethiopia's imperial past, that he wants to march into Eritrea's capital and declare the Red Sea as his border. He wants to be celebrated as the leader who restored Ethiopia's greatness. What do you say to people who say that?
Well, I said as much in the past myself. Now the question is...
Those are all your quotes. You said he was obsessed with Ethiopia's imperial past. You said he wants to restore Ethiopia's greatness. Is that not what you believe anymore?
Well, no. I mean, I don't have any problem with Abiy wanting to restore Ethiopia's greatness, whatever that greatness is. My issue is that sort of claim is not likely to lead to the kind of conflict people fear is going to happen anytime soon.
At the time, when you said it in 2021, you said it would lead to conflict.
I said it in I didn't even say it will lead to conflict. I said he will take over Asmara.
I understand that's what you're saying. My question is, does that mean you no longer think he's an imperialist warmonger?
No. I think at this point in time he cares more about his image, that he's trying to make differences in domestic politics and all that. So I don't think he will risk the kind of expansionist approach that many people impute to him. But
many people being you.